Two cops, one grocery store parking lot, one 73-year-old woman in a church hat with a cane in her hand. They thought nobody was coming for her. They were wrong, dead wrong, and they figured that out about 11 seconds too late. It was a Sunday late morning, hot Georgia sun already bouncing off the asphalt like it had something to prove. My mother, Dorothy Mae Calloway, had just left the 9 a.m. service at Greater Hope Missionary Baptist Church. She'd sung alto like she always did, strong and steady the way she'd been singing for 40 years. She still had on her cream hat with the burgundy ribbon, the good one, the one she only wore to church or funerals. She drove her 2009 Camry over to the Piggly Wiggly on Havford Avenue, parked in her usual spot, and sat there for a few minutes with her hands folded on the steering wheel saying her after-church prayers. She's done that every Sunday since I was a kid. It's her rhythm. It's her peace. You know what I mean? Some people scroll their phones. My mama talks to God. That's what they called suspicious. The assistant manager, some 22-year-old kid who'd probably never had to think about being watched in his own town, saw her sitting there and decided it didn't look right. He called the police, said there was a suspicious person lingering near the entrance. Suspicious. A 73-year-old woman in a church hat with a cane. Yeah, that happened. Officers, Brett Callender and Dennis Frick, rolled up like they were responding to a bank robbery. Callender stepped out first. Big shoulders, chest puffed. That tight jaw some men wear when they think authority is the same thing as respect. My mother was already out of her car by then, walking slow toward the entrance, careful with her knees leaning on the cane my father carved for her the winter before his heart gave out. She wasn't rushing anybody. She wasn't bothering anybody. She was going to buy groceries. Callender stepped right into her path. Not hello, not good morning, just a wall. Ma'am, we got a call about this area. You've been sitting out here a while. My mama looked up at him through her bifocals and said, calm as ever, I just came from church. You got ID on you, he asked. Now, my mother grew up in Georgia in the 1950s. She's seen men like that before. Different uniforms, same energy. She paused just long enough to let him know she understood exactly what was happening. I haven't done anything wrong, she said. I'm not required to show you my identification. That's when Frick moved to her left side. They flanked her like she was some kind of threat. Callender's voice got tighter. Ma'am, we're going to need you to step over here. I'm going to buy my groceries, she said, and she tried to step around him. That's when it turned. Callender grabbed her left arm. Not a gentle touch. A grab. My mother pulled back instinctively because when somebody seizes you without warning, your body reacts before your mind does. Frick grabbed her shoulder. Her cane hit the asphalt. Her glasses flew off. And then in a moment that still makes my hands shake when I think about it, Callender shoved her into the side of a parked pickup truck with both hands. She slid down that truck and hit the ground, 73 years old, cheek against hot pavement. Frick dropped a knee into her lower back and wrenched her arms behind her. She cried out sharp and high, not from fear but from pain. Her left shoulder dislocated right there in that parking lot. A side mirror cut her above the eyebrow. People started yelling. A woman screamed. A little boy near the entrance started crying. Phones came up everywhere. 4 different angles caught what happened next. Callender stood over her and said loud enough for the cameras, "She'll be okay, she just needs to calm down." Calm down, that phrase has a history where we come from. They zip-tied her wrists. They charged her with obstruction and resisting arrest. My 73-year-old mother, who smells like rose water and menthol, who still keeps peppermints in her purse for the kids at church, was lying face down on asphalt in handcuffs because she wouldn't show ID when she hadn't committed a crime. And that's when she reached for her phone. Now here's the part nobody in that parking lot understood yet. My mama only says I need you to come home when something is truly wrong. She said it once when my father died. That was it. So when she dialed my number and I picked up after 2 rings and she said soft and strained, "Baby, I need you to come home," I knew. "Where are you right now, Mama?" I asked. "Piggly Wiggly on Havford," she said. "They got me on the ground. My shoulder hurts. Bad." There was a pause. Not confusion. Calculation. "Are you still on the ground?" "Yes." "Are the officers still there?" "They're right here. They put cuffs on me." I pressed my knuckles against my lips for exactly 3 seconds. 17 years in the Army teaches you how to breathe before you speak. "I'm coming home, Mama," I said. "Don't say anything else to them. Not one word." The call lasted 11 seconds. I walked straight to my commanding officer. "Sir, I need emergency family leave. My mother's been assaulted and is in police custody in Georgia." He looked at my face and didn't ask a single follow-up question. He'd seen me in places most people will never see. He just said approved. Go. By the time I landed in Atlanta and drove down to Clanton, the videos were already everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, local news. 40,000 shares by nightfall. My mother had been processed, given a bandage and an ice pack through a cell door, and released on $50 bond posted by our neighbor Vivian. She rode home holding her dislocated shoulder and looking out at the Georgia pines like she was memorizing them. She told Vivian Nathaniel's coming. Vivian just said, "Lord have mercy," but it sounded different that time. Less like prayer, more like warning. I pulled into my mother's driveway Wednesday evening at 7:14 p.m. I remember the time because details matter. I hugged her gently, careful of the sling. I watched all 4 videos in silence at her kitchen table. When the last one ended, I closed the laptop and folded my hands. "Are you angry?" she asked me. "Yes," I said. "What are you going to do?" I looked at her for a long moment. "The right thing," I said. "The right way. So it actually matters. Do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. But I've also seen what happens when righteous anger gets sloppy. It feels good for 20 minutes, and then it buries the truth under the wreckage." So I made calls, first to Christopher Dors, the civil rights attorney who'd already reached out. Then to Theodore Haar, my old Ranger School sergeant who now worked in D.C. overseeing law enforcement accountability. Then to Priscilla Odom, an investigative journalist who had been digging into police misconduct across the Southeast for years. She answered and said, "I've already seen the video. I've been waiting for someone to call me." Within days, patterns started surfacing. 7 prior civil complaints against Clanton PD in 4 years. 3 naming Callender, 2 naming Frick. 1 from a tire shop owner whose shoulder had also been separated during a pretext stop. Dismissed internally. Insufficient evidence. But he had hospital records. He had security footage. He had kept everything in a manila folder because, as he told Priscilla, "I always knew someday it was going to matter." The story grew teeth. The city council meeting that Tuesday was supposed to be routine. It turned into standing room only. 43 people signed up to speak. George, the tire shop owner, spoke. Roberto Fierros, a landscaper, spoke about being thrown against his own truck 2 years earlier. A Waffle House waitress named Beverly said she'd watched a young man get slammed over an expired tag and stayed quiet because she thought nobody would believe her. Christopher Dors presented the lawsuit on my mother's behalf, naming the city the Chief Callender and Frick. Precise, methodical, no drama. Then I stood up. My name is Nathaniel Calloway," I said. "Dorothy May Calloway is my mother. I've served in places I can't name in operations that will never be declassified. I did it because I believed in what this country stands for. I came home to find my 73-year-old mother thrown to the ground for trying to buy groceries. I'm not here to threaten anyone. I'm here to make sure this doesn't get buried." I looked at Callender for exactly 2 seconds. Then I looked away. Not because I was afraid, because leverage is quiet. The DOJ Civil Rights Division opened a formal investigation within 30 days. 8 months later, they released a 47-page report. The word pattern appeared 43 times. The phrase unconstitutional conduct appeared 11. Callender and Frick were named in multiple incident analyses. That document attached itself to every legal proceeding that followed like a shadow that wouldn't fade. My mother's lawsuit settled 14 months later. The terms weren't public, but it was substantial. She used part of it to establish the Raymond Calloway Community Fund, named for my father, providing legal aid to people in Clanton County who couldn't afford representation. George finally received a settlement for his own case. Roberto framed his settlement letter on his office wall because, as he said, "It says in official language that what they did to me was wrong." Chief Harold Day resigned in month 9. Callender was terminated and decertified. He contested it. Lost. Frick was suspended, retrained, then fired after another use of force incident months later. Todd, the assistant manager who made the call, gave one interview saying he'd been scared of something that wasn't there and had thought about it every day since. A year after that Sunday, my mother drove herself back to the same Piggly Wiggly, parked in the same spot, sat for 15 minutes saying her after-church prayers, wore a new cream hat with a burgundy ribbon because the old one sat in a lawyer's office as evidence. When she walked inside, people nodded at her with the kind of respect usually reserved for veterans. She bought her groceries, she chatted with the cashier, she drove home. I went back, she told me on the phone that night. "I know," I said. "Vivian posted the photo." She laughed. "That woman can't keep a camera down." "How did it feel?" I asked. She thought for a second. "Like mine," she said. It felt like mine again. Here's the part that still gets debated. Some folks say justice was served. Others say the officers were just doing their jobs. Some say my mother should have shown her ID and none of it would have happened. That's the tension, isn't it, between compliance and rights, between keeping your head down and standing your ground. What I know is this: accountability didn't come from one dramatic moment. It came from documentation, persistence, community, and refusing to let the story die. It came from my mother deciding not to disappear quietly. It came from a journalist reading the whole file. It came from a federal attorney picking up the phone. It came from neighbors standing up in a council meeting and saying, "This happened to me too." So I want to ask you something. If you'd been in that parking lot, what would you have done? If it was your mother, your grandmother, your church elder on that asphalt, would you have told her to just comply? Or would you have told her she had rights? And if you've ever seen something like this, if you've ever stayed quiet because you thought nobody would believe you, what would it take for you to speak up? Drop your thoughts below. Share your own story if you've got one. Because stories like this don't change anything if they just sit in silence. They change when people talk, argue, wrestle with what's right and what's easy. And if this moved you, like, subscribe and share it with someone who thinks accountability is automatic. It isn't. It's built. Slowly, stubbornly, by people who refuse to let the truth be buried.